Hi everyone, so today we're going to do a Lightroom Mobile editing tutorial using the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 108 megapixel shot that I did in Makati Poblacion recently with our model Nikki. So this is what we're going to edit today in Lightroom Mobile. This was highly requested by you guys, how I edit my photo, how I color grade them, and what application did I use. So basically the application I used was Lightroom CC in desktop, and I don't use any Photoshop to color grade my photos. Basically all color grading happens in Lightroom. So yeah, but today we're gonna do Lightroom Mobile. We're gonna do this in Lightroom Mobile, which is very much possible, although Lightroom Mobile has some adjustments that is not present in Lightroom Desktop. So if you would ask me what application I would prefer, it would be Lightroom Desktop, because it's more complete and you do it in a bigger screen, and the handling is the overall experience of editing in post-processing is better if you use Lightroom Desktop. Oh yeah, before we start, I just want to give you guys simple tips or advice during this tutorial. So as we go into this tutorial, I'll be explaining some of the adjustments, why you need to do these adjustments, because copying the settings alone, you could just copy the settings I do, but it won't just have the same effect. Because if you don't know the reason behind of these adjustments, the reason behind why you have to decrease the highlights, why you have to increase the shadows, why you have to decrease the contrast, or why do you have to add some split toning or some tone curve, if you don't know the reason behind those stuff or those adjustments, you won't be able to do this in any kind of photo or in any kind of low light photo that you have. So you'll just be wondering why is it too blue, or why is it so dark or so very bright, because you just copied the settings that I did, which is totally different from the situation in your photo. So you really need to know the reason or the rationale behind those adjustments for you to be for you to effectively adjust the sliders according to your photo. So that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. So hopefully you'll be able to get something through it. I hopefully you could be able to grasp the whole concept of why these adjustments need to be done, so you could apply it to your kind of edit or to your photo. So yeah, thank you guys. So without further ado, this is Lightroom Mobile editing. So let's start editing. Alright, so let's start editing. Let's open Lightroom. Opening Lightroom, and here is the image that we're gonna edit today. This is Nikki, shot in Makati Poblacion. So yeah, basically this is what we're gonna edit, and I'll show you guys. Yeah, this is effect that we're gonna try to do or recreate. But here's a tip. Before you start editing in your Lightroom Mobile, always remember to put it in your maximum brightness. So the colors would be more accurate, so you won't be able to overexpose your photo when you check on the sliders. So always remember to put your phone brightness to its maximum. So that's a must when you're starting to edit. That also goes with your laptop. So always try to maximize the brightness so you could get a more accurate exposure when you're editing. Alright, so let's begin. So yeah, this is the image. This is 108 megapixel 108 megapixel shot of Nikki, our model. There you can see the details. It's really sharp. Yeah, it's amazing. So right, so let's begin. So when I do my editings first, I always start at the exposure. So let's start here at the light menu, or the light tab. So click on that. Alright, so what I usually do is try to expose the image more. So let's boost up the exposure a bit to have a better view of the overall surroundings. So there you go. Also, what I do is I decrease the contrast. Basically, what the contrast does is it gives more details. It shows more of the details of your subject if you decrease it. Because a lot of people ask me, what is the difference of contrast? So what does it do exactly? So contrast basically does it darkens your darkest areas and it brightens your brightest areas, if you get what I mean. Basically it brightens up your bright areas and it darkens up your dark areas. So here's an example. So I'll boost there you go. If I boost the contrast, what happens? It doesn't only brightens up everything, but it also darkens up the black area. See? So the black belt got even more darker when I increase it. But the bright areas like here in the body or in the face, it brightened up even more. So that's what the contrast basically does. It brightens up your bright areas and it darkens up your dark areas simultaneously as you increase the contrast. But if you decrease it, it shows more of the details of the dark areas and your brightest areas. So that's why I decrease my contrast. So that's very important. That's a very important thing to know if you want to show more details of your subject. So that's what I'm doing today. So I decrease the contrast. That goes with the highlights. It basically gives more details of your background area of the light. So yeah, I decrease that. Let's try. There you go. There you go. That's good. 21, 25, I mean. Now let's go to your shadows. Shadows basically, this is your darkest, this is the darkest areas of your image. So the blacks basically. So when I increase this, it shows more of the details, as you could see here in the hair. So when I decrease that, it darkens up yung black areas, the blackest areas. But when I increase it, it shows more of the details. So in this light tab, the goal is to expose more of the details of the subject, to give more emphasis to it. So that's what I'm doing. So that's basically the edit. So it shows more details on the hair, which I'm aiming for to do. Here, as you could see, yeah, there you go. More details. Let's try going up even further. There you go. Now the whites, basically this is just, your white areas, of course. So since it's kind of, you kind of want to decrease all the white areas, or to show, not be overpowered with the exposure of the white colors. So you just decrease that a bit. There you go. I mean, maybe 20. Yeah, is good. So the blacks, of course. My goal here is to increase, to show more details. So I'll be increasing more of the blacks to brighten it up even further. There you go. I think yeah, 86 would be good. All right. So next, we won't go. I won't show you guys the curves yet. I'll just go ahead and do the. Let's go to the color and do the white balance. So when you guys are dealing with an image like this, so what do you see? First, you assess the image. It's like, is it too warm or is it too, too cool or too bluish? So in our image, in this case, the image is too warm for me. It's too orange, basically. So what I do is I decrease the temperature. So going to the left side, making it more bluish, so it could be more balanced. So this goes a long way already in correcting skin tone when you use your white balance. So some people ask me, what do you do to correct your skin tone? Basically, your white balance does a good job when correcting skin tone. So you better keep that in mind. So yun na siya. It kind of correct already the warm tone and balance it out by adding more blues into it. So it's a tint. I won't go much. Maybe you could play with it actually, but for now I'll just make it 0. Next is vibrance and saturation. So what my general rule when I start editing is always be subtle. Always have a subtle saturation or a subtle effect. That's why I prefer the vibrance over saturation, because vibrance has a more subtle increase in the depth of saturation compared to the saturation tab. For example, so when I put it here to 56, it has a very subtle effect on the color saturation of the image. But when I use the saturation, see that effect? It's too harsh. It's too harsh for me. Although it may work in some, in some cases, but depending on your workflow, like mine, I prefer having a subtle look. So that's why I prefer That's why I prefer, we call this vibrance over saturation. So let's just increase that to maybe around, there you go, 56, and make that 0. All right, so that's for our color. Let's go to the mix. So this is your HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. So this is basically your selective your selective adjustment in the kind of color that would affect your photo. So here, let's go start with the reds. Basically, in this would be different in every photo, because not everyone has a violet or a magenta or maybe a red in your photo, but it really depends on the color of the photos that you have. So let's start, maybe check if there's a difference. All right, here we go. There's a difference here on the body, so maybe you just limit that to maybe 19. There you go. Oops, sorry. There. Oops. There. I kind of want to decrease the saturation to, because I already increased this vibrance, so maybe decrease the saturation here to make it more subtle. Alright, that's good for me. Now let's go to the orange. So this is the clothes of Nikki. so maybe increase that a bit to 20. Yeah, 26 is good, or 25. Now, yeah, subtleness. So I always usually decrease the saturation here in HSL because, you know, I already increased the vibrance, so that's basically my flow. All right, and then go to the yellows. Let's see what changes this. Oh, basically it's in the background. So maybe put this to 52. Yeah, decrease again the saturation. Maybe not too much. 55. There you go. Oops, sorry. There you go. I think that's good. Move to the greens. This is from your background here as well. So, you know, it's better if you want to zoom so you could, you know, better see what color affects the adjustment. So I don't want it too green, so maybe adding a little bit of warm tone to it. So maybe like yeah, that's be good. And of course, decrease saturation again. Basically, the saturation decrease is based on your preference. I just want it to be, you know, saturation decreased because, yeah, of course, I already increased the vibrance in our inner color a while ago. Decreasing the luminance here of a selective color, of course, balances out, gives more emphasis not only to the background, but, you know, to the subject. That's why I'm decreasing it. Let's go to the blues. So let's see what affects this. Alright, so basically the background. So this has not as a minimal effect. So probably just leave it to 0. I don't go to too much extreme here at the moment because I want it to look more like, you know, more natural. So yeah, decrease again the saturation to around 25. Yeah, 26 is good. And this one maybe I'll increase the luminance because it's near in the face. So I wanted something bright over there. So maybe around 20. There you go. That's good. Now let's go to the blues. Okay, let's see what affects this. All right. So most of the people I know, you know, some mistakes like go to very much extremes like that. It gives more maybe say tealish effect, orange and teal effect. But let's not go to that kind of extreme at this moment. Like, or you want to make it like that. Let's try to make it, you know, more natural. So that's what we're aiming for, a more natural tone. There you go. I think that would balance it out. And of course, decrease saturation again. So basically in my edits, this is the flow of my HSL. It's either depending on what kind of view you want, but the saturation and luminance is usually decreased like so. Yeah, that's good for me. This is minus 28. Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, let's go to our magenta. So let's see what. All right, okay, this is too much. Maybe that. There you go. It's better. That's better. Okay, maybe decrease that to 58. 59. Yeah, 57 is good. And of course, decrease the saturation. There you go. Luminance. Let's see what effect does it do. No, it affects much of the face as well. So maybe I'll just leave it to. Let's leave it to 0 because I am 0. Okay, let's leave it to 1. This is the problem with doing Lightroom Mobile, the handling. That's why I prefer doing it in Lightroom Desktop. Alright, so 1 or 0, yeah, that's good. Okay, let's go to the last one, which is your magenta. Wait, we did it na pala there. Okay, 18. Wait, what does this affect here? It's a face, so yeah, maybe decrease that a bit. 17. So you don't want to do that as well, increasing the. That's what happens if you have a selective increase in luminance in a color. So you better be mindful of that. Avoid those kind of aberration when you increase the luminance of a selective color. So that's why I usually decrease it a bit. There you go. I think -4 is good. Alright. So that is from our color tab. Okay, so click on done. And let's go to split toning. Good. Split toning over here. So we won't touch texture or clarity at the moment. So let's go to split toning. Split toning. So what to add in split toning? Basically, highlights is your reflective light. Let's say your reflective light. This usually affects your background lighting here and the face of your subject. That's why when you see, there you go, it affects the face. Basically, it does affect the face of your subject or the skin of your subject, because that's where usually highlights are present. So yeah, skin tone. So basically, when you do your split toning, this is also one ways to correct the skin tone of your subject. So be mindful of that. The shadows is basically adding more color to your darkest areas, overall darkest areas. So that's what it does. So when you do split toning, you've got to manage the balance on what to add. Let's say your highlights has maybe it's too pale, or maybe it's too too blue or too cool. So that's a good opportunity to add some add some more warmness or more depth of color to your skin tone. So that's what we're gonna do today. So maybe I'm gonna leave this up to wait a minute. Major warm, not really too much warm, but around like that. Okay, so the saturation here depends on how high you go. Here in the slider, if you here in this small adjustment, circle adjustment here, the higher you go, the higher the saturation it does. So it also gives you what kind of color you have. So what I have here is more of a very warm tone, which I'd like to see in the face of my subject. So that is what we're gonna add. So maybe around a view of 42 with a decreased saturation of very subtle of 10. Alright, that's good. Now let's go to our shadows. See that? So wait, what to add? In this case, I'll be adding more of a bit of warm tone into it. So maybe around around 12. There you go. Decrease the saturation a bit. no, wait, increase a bit. I'll increase the hue around maybe 25, and then decrease the saturation to around. And there you go. That's good. All right. So the balance depends, because when you basically what the balance does, it favors your highlights or shadows. If you go here, let's say go to way to the right, this as you go, wait, I'll give you an example. This greatly affects your highlights. So when you go to the left, this would favor your shadows, which is right now in the more warm tones, kind of warm or brown tone there. But I'm right now in the highlights, I'm using green. This is just an example, so when I go here, it's more green. So that's why this is the purpose of the balance. So you mix them together to have more balanced tone. So let's go back to our usual highlight settings. There you go, 42. So you balance that out. Maybe there you go. That is good for me. Hold on, I'll change this into 7. All right. So that is our split toning. So let's quickly look to our before and after. So there you go. That's our before, and this is our after. So it's slowly getting more tones already. There you go. So we're not done yet. So let's go to our sharpening. I don't sharpen much, so maybe I'm just around, just to pop a little bit of detail, especially with the eyes and the face and the hair. So maybe around just 27. Masking, this is what I do here, because when you increase the mask, it just gives you the outline, it just sharpens out the outline detail of your subject. So I usually put that to 80, so it doesn't sharpens everything. It just sharpens out the details or outline of your subject, the outline of the hair, the outline of the lips, the outline of the eyes. So that's basically it. So maybe add a bit of noise reduction, not too much, because if you do it intensely, you will lose a lot of details. So maybe just enough to make it not so rough. So maybe around 10 or 12, or maybe around 14 is good. Okay, that's good enough. I don't do color already. Color reduction, it's all good. Alright, so next is the optics. Optics always turn on the chromatic aberration, just to decrease if there's any chromatic aberration present in the photo. I always turn that on. Lens correction, this depends on what you use. Since we're just using a phone here, this is really not that important. All right, so we're almost done. So that's our tone. Now I specifically made this adjustment last, because now we go to our curves. So what the curves does is it basically adds more depth. It adds more depth to your subject. So be mindful, this is what we have now. So this is the before and this is the after. We don't have any curves yet. Usually what people do, they disregard the curves because they don't know how to use it. But the curves is, it gives you a lot more depth when you know how to use it. So I won't be explaining much here because it would take too long. But I'll just give you a basic a basic thing, a basic guide on how to do the curves. So usually I do mine in always an S curve because it gives you more depth to the photo. So let's start with the exposure curve. This is the white one. This is the exposure curve. So in every curve, there's always divide them into 3 parts. First is here. This is the upper right. This is your highlights. The middle is your midtones because it's middle. And the darkest one is right down here, and that is your shadows. So always divide them by 3. You don't have to do the basic 3 dotted here, but always look at them as 3 parts, which is the highlights, midtones, and shadows. So what I'll do here, I'll increase the highlights a bit, moving it up here. That would make it, more emphasis on the face. Midtones, I'll decrease that a bit here. There you go. And for the shadows, I will decrease that, increase it a bit right there. Oops, sorry. Let's remove that. Maybe I'll move it, decrease it right here. Oops. There you go. Okay, that's why I prefer using desktop, because using my fingers to control, to put it where I want it to be, isn't that, working much. Oops, hold on. I'll take that off. Alright, so that is our whites, our exposure curve. Now let's go to our reds. I want you guys to see the difference, what it does, what the curves does. So here, again, separate again the 3, the highlights, midtones, and shadows. Alright, I'll decrease this around here. And then maybe add another adjustment here, just right below the belt right there. And then maybe increase this a bit. Alright, maybe up to there. Okay, so the middle one, maybe move it just a little bit in the middle more. There you go. So now let's move to our green curve. Again, split it into 3 parts. 3 parts, highlights, midtones, and shadows. There you go. And move it again. Make an S curve. Why an S curve, you may say? Because if you could see, it's up, down, up here in the highlights, and down in the curves. Basically gives you more depth. It gives you more depth of tone. It gives you more the boldness kind of look, I would say, in your photos. That's why I love doing the S curve. There you go. Maybe a bit more here. Alright, so as you could see, it's already giving more color. More color to our subject right there. Alright, so let's go to our blues. Alright, our blues is again divided into 3 again. So this is the process basically of what I do. That's why it takes a lot of time doing edits, because I don't use preset much, especially when it comes to my lowlight edits, because I wanted to have that a more more feels into it when I start editing. You know, presets are good if you want a fast workflow, but it won't really generally happen if you're doing it in low light, because of the situational differences and the enhancements, because of the enhancements you need to do. So that's why it's important for you to know the difference of these adjustments. All right, okay, all right. See, it's already looking more and more the way we intentionally want it to be. So now that you've gotten the tones of the tone curve, now you could do more adjustments into it. See, it's more it has a little bit of red into it, so you could decrease that more. Let's try looking into that. So you could go back to your your red curves and try to adjust that more to your liking. Okay, maybe there. Oops. There you go. Let's go back to our exposure here. Maybe we could adjust something more, just a little bit. There you go. All right. Okay. There you go. See the difference? If you use tone curve, it gives you more general tone of the subject. So let's enhance that a bit more. So we could go back to our exposure right here, and maybe decrease the contrast even more there to show more of the tone. And then maybe decrease the blacks a little bit. Decrease a little bit. There you go. Now let's go. Wait. So now basically we already achieved the the basic tone of our edit. So now you have to enhance it even more. So what do you do? So maybe there is a little bit of red into it. So maybe I'll just decrease it even more and maybe kind of have an orange kind of look. So maybe I'll increase the temperature a bit. There you go. That's better. Maybe let's try increasing. Nope. There you go. Maybe putting more green tint to balance out, to make it more orange. There you go. I see that's better. Alright, so that's basically it, guys. So when you go to the before and after, hold on, there, and here is our after. So now let's try to enhance this even more. So what I do is let's go to the selective adjustments. Now the selective adjustments in the Lightroom Mobile needs to be like a premium account. So you really have this is like a premium thing you need to buy. So I'm not sure how much the paid Lightroom application is. I think it's 200 pesos or 300. I'm not sure. It could have been increased now, but so yeah, that's basically it if you want to use the selective adjustments. So yeah, so let's do some selective adjustments. So what I do here, I wanted to highlight the eyes even more. So what I do is I actually do selective brushing. Since it's hard to use the brush paint selective adjustment here because it's too small and I have not really big fingers, but it's hard to paintbrush the details here because it's too small. So what I'll do, I'll use the radial filter. So using the radial filter here in the eyes, there you go, I wanted to increase just a little. Yeah, there you go. Just make sure it's right just in the eyes. Alright, there you go. I wanted to show the eyes even more, so what I'll do, I'll go to light and then increase the shadows a bit here, and then go to color and increase the saturation, you know, adding more, not too much guys, not too much like that. That's too much, so increasing that a bit there. So maybe I'll increase the exposure a bit more like that there, maybe adding a little bit of contrast. There you go. And then copy that, duplicate radial filter right there, and then transfer that to the other eye, just decreasing it a bit to just expose the eyes right there. Alright, so it has more emphasis right now to the eyes, which is I think a very good feature. There you go. See, mas kita na siya. There. Oh, diba? It makes it more vibrant. It makes you, you know, it makes you give more emphasis to the subject and makes you look into her eyes even more. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool if you could see. Now let's add one more adjustment, which is another radial adjustment to add more emphasis to our subject. So let's add a radial adjustment. There you go. What I'll do is make this wider like that. There you go. And then hold on to that circle over there, and yeah, just hold it for this option to appear. This is the invert radial gradient. This will invert your the affecting the background and leaving partly the subject alone right there. So what you do is go to this slider over here, the mask into your upper left, hold that, and then yeah, there you go. This is the feathering, so maybe increase that to around 80% to have more subtle effect. There you go. So what I'll do here is, oops, hold on. Oops, I lost it. Okay, let's do that again. Alright, let's do selective adjustments. So let's do that again. Sorry. And then invert it like that, and then feather it, make it more subtle, so maybe 80%, or maybe 85. I'll just go to 85. There you go. Then go to light, then decrease the highlights. What that will do, it will give you like kind of not really a vignette kind of look, but it's more subtle. See, it focuses more on the subject. There you go. Not too much, so if you go too much, that would be the effect, but just like a little bit like that. There you go. It gives more boldness into it. Alright, there you go. I think that's good. So what is the effect? There you go. See, it's more subtle siya for me. That depends on your preference if you want to add it, but you know, it's really not required. This is just my flow into it. So this is, wait, let's delete this, remove that. Alright, so what's the difference? So let's go undo it and see the effect of the radial filter. See, and if we go, this is without, and both works for me actually. It depends on your preference. This is without the overall radial filter, and this is the one with the radial filter, so it gives more emphasis to the subject. So now that's basically my workflow in Lightroom Mobile. So you could enhance this even more. You could maybe increase a bit. You could go back to your light menu and maybe increase a bit of highlight, you know, to to show more of the subject there, enhance it a bit. So yeah, basically that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you guys have any other questions about editing in Lightroom Mobile or in Lightroom Desktop, feel free to message me on the comments below and see, and give me some suggestions or maybe some tips if you have. What I do here, basically, I could go to Photoshop and enhance this even more, but it's more of like sharpening and more on just, retouching the skin. But this is, the skin already is perfect for me, so there's no need to do that already for me. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys could learn something about what I just said, and from the sliders I explained, the adjustments that I explained, hopefully it gives you more idea on what you adjust in your low light edits. So please don't forget to subscribe and to get notified even more from what I'll be doing in the future. So thank you guys. So this is again Zhao, another editing tutorial using the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 108. This is 108 megapixels, so you can see the details. It's amazing. This is just using the Xiaomi Mi Note 10, and I am loving every bit of detail of this. And this is just a JPEG shot. This is not even a this is not even a raw format. So that's basically